Thank you for checking out Lakehead International's videos. You're about to watch one of our Lakehead International live webinars, a fun and informative way to learn more about Lakehead while also meeting faculty, staff, and current students. If you have any questions throughout today's video, please comment below. Otherwise, let's get started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another Lakehead International Live. My name is Jordan Ball. I'll be your host today. First and foremost, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to our audience for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you, and we're excited to share more about applying for your student visa to hopefully join us here one day in Canada and pursue studies with us at Lakehead University. I'm joined by two special guests from our International Student Services team. They are both regulated immigration consultants. But before we introduce them, I'll introduce myself so you get to know me. My name is Jordan Ball. I'm the International New and Social Media Officer. I help run our live events, our digital experiences, our social media channels, and I also help co-manage the Global Ambassador Program here on the Thunder Bay campus. So it's my pleasure to be here and guiding you through today's session, but I'll pass it over to Jen to say hello, and then we'll welcome Jintu as well.
Thanks, Jordan. And hello, everybody. My name is Jennifer Hay. I'm one of the student advisors with Lakehead International and also a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. Born and raised here in Thunder Bay, so look forward to welcoming you all to our beautiful city. And I've been at Lakehead now. I'm going into my 8th year working with students here and 15 years altogether welcoming students into Thunder Bay. So look forward to seeing you guys all next year. Over to you, Jintu.
Thank you, Jennifer. Hi, everyone. My name is Jintu Thompson, and I am one of the international student advisors and a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. We all are located on the beautiful Thunder Bay campus. It's nice and snowy and wintry outside today. We have a great team of passionate advisors who are here to support you during your time at Lakehead University. So together with our team, we will be here from you from the beginning of your journey till your graduation day. So my role today is to support the Q&A in the background. So feel free to share all your questions using the Q&A function. And thanks for joining us today. Pass it back to Jordan.
Great. Thank you again to both of you for joining. I know it's a busy time of the year as we are welcoming or looking to prepare and welcome plenty of new students this upcoming January. But before we do that, we know that there's still many students that are looking for next steps in terms of how to secure a student visa here in Canada and perhaps just considering at the very beginning of the process, what are they going to need to do? In terms of our agenda, first we're going to chat a bit about what is a Canadian study permit, and then we're going to actually switch gears and chat about what is your status at Lakehead in terms of that application to one of your desired programs. And then from there, we'll go into next steps where Jennifer will walk us through the letter of acceptance, biometrics, medical exams, cooperative education, employment in Canada, processing times, and accompany family members. So quite a few topics to cover today, but we're confident that we'll be able to power through them. Alrighty, so with that being said, I think it's time to dive into our session today, and the first topic to kick things off is that general question that you may be asking yourself: what is a study permit? So a study permit is a document that the Canadian government issues and allows actual foreign nationals to study at designated learning institutions, or as we call them, DLIs in Canada. You're going to hear a lot of acronyms in today's webinar, and that's okay. If you don't remember all of them, we'll help guide you in that process. To remind you, though, most foreign nationals do typically require or need a study permit to actually study in Canada. Lakehead University does have a DLI number. It's listed on the screen there. It's also on the immigration website, IRCC's website. So you don't need to write it down or take a photo necessarily. If you would like to, you're more than welcome to, but it will be accessible after today's webinar, of course. And most importantly, as you consider the question, what is a study permit? You also have to know you should absolutely apply for that study permit before you travel to Canada. And so then that question becomes, when should I start the process? And that's where we shift gears. And as I noted earlier, we dive into and explore the idea of what is your application status at Lakehead University. So first, we're going to take a peek at undergraduate applicants. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can see 3 statuses with an X beside them. That's incomplete, pending, or refused. If you're any one of those 3 statuses as of today, or when you're prepared or you think you're ready to apply for that study permit, we're going to have to ask you to hold off on making that application. Perhaps, though, you can continue to prepare your documents for your study permit. If you're on the right-hand side of the screen, if admitted conditionally, admitted, or eligible to register sounds familiar, or you recognize that status as what it lists on your online application, great. You are more than welcome to proceed to that application. There is an asterisk there, though. There's a star. So this is where we actually have to pause for a second, and we have to remind our viewers that for undergraduate applicants joining us this upcoming winter and beyond, there is a new guideline that requires all new post-secondary international students at the undergraduate level to provide something called the provincial attestation letter. This is going to come directly from either the province or the territory with your study permit, and it's going to be tied to and attached actually with your online application. So IRCC, Immigration, Refugees, Citizenship Canada, will return any applications that they receive that do not have a PAL unless otherwise exempt. So you may be asking yourself, for undergrad students joining us this winter, how do I get a provincial attestation letter, a PAL? So step one is accept your offer of admission and pay your confirmation deposit. Pretty straightforward. Once you've done these two steps, you can complete the short PAL request form, and then when approved, you can pay your PAL confirmation deposit. Once you've done step 1 to 3, and we've received that final payment, we will then issue your PAL. We work closely with the Ontario government, so there is a few days of processing typically there. But when you receive that PAL from Lakehead University, you'll then be eligible to continue to step 5, which is applying for your study permit. Once again, this is only applicable to undergraduate students joining us in January 2025 and beyond. It will become applicable to all applicants of all levels of study beyond the winter intake. So we'll chat about that in a second, though. Diving a bit deeper, you may be asking yourself, well, as an undergrad joining in the winter, what are the things that I need to do? So once again, you do need to accept your offer from Lakehead University, and it's going to be outlined how to do that actually within your letter of acceptance. And then you'll be required to pay the $500 confirmation deposit. You'll then have to respond to the PAL request form, as I noted, and then the payment of $5,000 Canadian for your PAL deposit. If you need more details, you can visit the website on your screen. But with that being said, that's a quick overview of PAL. We'll come back to it in a few slides here as we talk about what documents you'll need to prepare. For our viewers that are joining us at the graduate level, so a master's or a PhD, there's a few other statuses here that are related to your Lakehead application. Application stage, additional information, initial review, department review, refused committee decision. Those 5 statuses are something that we'll ask you to hold off on proceeding with your study permit application, but perhaps prepare your documents. You're only eligible to proceed your application if you have been admitted. So currently, master's and PhD students starting their studies in January 2025 will not require a PAL and are exempt from this requirement, actually. However, master's and PhD students starting their studies in May and September 2025, they will require a PAL as per the recent government announcement. So we'll chat about that and what those effects are in the future. But let's talk about what it is to proceed to that application. So first and foremost, to those students that have that tick box, have the check, they're ready to go, they've been admitted to Lakehead University, it's our time to celebrate. Congratulations. This is an exciting time for you, of course. Your hard work has clearly paid off because now you're joining one of Canada's top 5 universities. So we're going to take a pause here from the formal speeches, all that, and I'm going to launch a quick poll just to get to engage you a bit further. We'd love to hear from you. What level of study are you pursuing? Will you be joining us at the undergraduate, graduate level, or perhaps in our English as a second language or academic English program? Perhaps this is not applicable. By you responding, this will also help us ensure that we know who's on today's webinar. We'll still talk about all varying factors for different student types, but this gives us a better idea. So I'll give you another 20 seconds or so to answer that question. There's definitely one group here today that's predominantly always here, but also they're showing out today. Alrighty, I'll be wrapping that poll up in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So thank you again to everyone that participated. I'll launch that, share the results with everyone. We have 85% of our grad students here today. That's awesome. Welcome. Thank you again for joining us. 12% are undergraduate or bachelor's students, and there's a couple of you that are not applicable. That's okay as well. You're still here to learn more and capture some really incredible information delivered by our team within International Student Services. So on that very note, I'm going to pass it over to Jen to kick things off and share more about the next steps of the process.
Thanks, Jordan. All right, so now you have your letter of acceptance. You're eligible to register. For those who are coming in January, registration is already open, so make sure that you are selecting your classes ahead of time, even while you're waiting for that study permit approval. But at this point, you should definitely be submitting your study permit application for the January intake. And if you're coming for spring, summer, next September, you definitely have some time to prepare your documents. We always encourage applicants to apply as early as possible. We know that IRCC does put the processing times on the website, but this does fluctuate, and there's many factors that will also contribute to more delays for you as well. So of course, now you want to be gathering the documents in the country that you're residing in. That's where you will be applying for the study permit. You do apply online, so you'll make an IRCC account, gather the documents, and we'll talk about what those documents look like, and then get ready for your entry requirements. So next steps, make sure that you're using the online tool from outside of Canada. Some of you may be applying for your study permit from inside of Canada, and I'll talk a little bit about that process as well. So if you're outside of Canada or even inside, you're going to go to the IRCC website, you're going to make an account, you're going to read the instruction guide, and this is specific to the country you're applying to. We'll talk about that in the slides to come. You'll prepare your questions through the online tool, and then you're going to prepare your payments and documents as well. So just so you know, the study permit does cost $150. And if this is your first time applying to Canada, you'll also pay $85 for biometrics. And the last step, of course, is to create your online account and sign in. So be patient with the IRCC website. It's something that we struggle with every day, but you will definitely get very familiar with this website, applying for your study permit, doing any extensions or applications inside of Canada, and eventually applying for your postgraduate work permit when you graduate. So to get started, you'll give your email and they'll send you a code to your email, and then you can log in to make yourself a GC Key account. So the first time you sign in, you'll go to the far right and sign up. There will be quite a few steps of questions and codes sent to your email and then setting up recovery questions. So please just make sure you keep track of all of that information. You don't access this login very often. Months could go by, so it's easy to forget those details. But when you have applications in progress for months, you want to make sure you can always access the account. So please carefully keep track of your username and password. Don't guess the password multiple times. It will lock the account. Use the recovery steps if needed. So what do you need to apply for the study permit? Again, the letter of acceptance from Lakehead University, your proof of finance, your proof of identity. Of course, we recommend using your passport, the provincial attestation letter, so your PAL letter for undergraduate students, and some country-specific documents. So your letter of acceptance, Jordan has already gone through this. You'll get that through your MyInfo account. We've talked about making sure that you're eligible or admitted to the program. So you can download that and you're going to use that document to upload for your proof of acceptance. If you're an undergraduate student and you have questions about your admission, you can see the contact information here. For our master's and PhD students, the graduate admissions office is down below. I know both offices are very busy, so please just be patient with them and give them some time to respond. So Oh, I guess I didn't really mention that. I thought we talked about unconditional letters of acceptance within there. But just so you know, if you do have an unconditional letter of acceptance, that's what we recommend using when you're applying. This might be coming in the slides to come. It's been a while since I've done one of these webinars, but just so you know, if you have a conditional letter of acceptance, you can use that to start the visa process. I know we do recommend using unconditional letters, but the processing time is quite slow. So if you do use your conditional letter saying, for example, you need to meet the English requirements, you should also show in your application that you have a test date for your English test. And then once you do pass that test and register for classes, you should update IRCC when your study permit application is still in progress. Thank you, Jordan. Sorry. All right, back now to the proof of finance. So proof of finance is becoming more and more important with your study permit application. We did increase this, or I should say IRCC did increase the living expenses to $20,635 in the beginning of this year. So please remember, if you're bringing your spouse and children, you would have to include more proof of finance. With your living expenses, you also need to show tuition for 1 year. We do have a tuition calculator or cost estimator on our website. This will kind of put in all of your expenses for your program and living expenses as well. So feel free to use that if you're trying to make an estimate and know what should I be putting as the cost of my stay on that application form. So for proof of finance, you can use multiple sources. These are what is accepted by IRCC. And of course, first and foremost, we recommend paying your tuition fees upfront. This shows that you're serious about studying with Lakehead and that you do have the funds available. You also could have a student loan or an education loan from your bank in your home country or here in Canada. You may have using your own funds so that you have your own funds available in your own bank account. So then you would show your bank statements, or maybe it's your parents and they're showing their bank statements. A GIC, the Guaranteed Investment Certificate. This is actually used with a bank in your home country that will actually give allotments, like monthly allotments that will be distributed to you here. So that's a nice proof of finance that IRCC likes to see because it's confirmed through a banking association. And then proof of funds paid in Canada. So if you have a scholarship or maybe you have a teaching assistantship within your schooling, this is usually mentioned in your letter of acceptance. So you can include that with a copy with your proof of finance. So if you're using multiple sources, say I have a scholarship, I've paid some tuition to Lakehead, plus my parents are going to pay the rest, you should probably prepare a cover page that explains this is all the sources of income and make a little chart that shows you have the full amount, and then put those sources of income all together. Many students will tell me, Jennifer, there's only one spot for uploading, and that is correct. So you have to merge it all together and sometimes compress it too because your file size can't be more than 4 megabytes. So just spend some time making sure you put it together. There's no problem with showing more finance, right? So this is where we see a lot of people struggle with their applications. So making sure you do a proper job with your proof of finance will go a long way with your processing. And of course, proof of identity would be your passport from your home country. If you're living in another country, you can put your residency card there from there as well. Passports have to be issued for at least 6 months. We actually encourage you to renew the passport. If it's going to expire in the next 5 years or less, then you should definitely try to renew it ahead of time. You come to Canada to study and then you will apply for a work permit. So you need at least 5 years, if you ask me, on your study permit validity or passport validity. You can renew your passport once you're here in Canada, but that means renewing the permits and the visas and dealing with your consulate here. It's a very slow and expensive process. So I know it's much easier to just renew the passport before you get started in your home country. And the provincial attestation letter, I know Jordan has mentioned and touched on this already. So once you follow the steps within our admissions process, you will be provided this PAL letter. And you will attach this in your study visa application. You'll also note on the application form, it will ask you for the PAL letter and the expiry date. Now, those country-specific documents. So you can actually go to the IRCC website and look for visa offices. So when you look through there, you will select the country that you are living in, and it will pull up a guide. So you can get specific instruction guides for that country. So there's one for studying, there's one for visiting, and one for working. So outside of what we've talked about today, your home country may have other specific requirements. A good example of this is what's called the SOP, or Statement of Purpose. Many visa offices want you to write a letter and maybe 5 to 10 points. Why did you pick this program? Why are you going to study in Canada? How is this going to benefit your future? And so forth. Other examples are birth certificates, not something that IRCC wants, but sometimes your visa office will require. So to make sure that you're getting all the required documents in your application, please download this guide and review it before you submit your application. Once your study visa application is approved online, you will be asked to send your passport for visa stamping. There are some countries that are visa exempt, and you'll get what's called an ETA. The ETA is just an email that allows you to travel with your passport into Canada. So a study permit allows you to study, and you don't actually get that permit until you enter the country. But the visa, this stamping, which looks just like how it is in the picture here, it's an entry visa. So you will send your passport in your home country for a stamp. And once you have this will permit you to enter Canada as a student. When you enter the country is when you actually will get that study permit at the port of entry. So it's important to look at the start and end dates of your visa. Make sure you are entering Canada before the expiry date. So biometrics is a collection of your fingerprints and your photograph. Most countries have been doing this for a long time, and IRCC started to do this back in 2019. So you will pay that biometric fee, as I mentioned, when you apply for your application. This is something that happens automatically. So you pay the fee, and then within 48 hours of applying, you'll receive a request to go give your biometrics. And this again happens at those visa offices outside of Canada or the VFS centers. You will be sent a link, and then you can click on there to find the center that's closest to you. Your application cannot continue unless you give your biometrics, so please don't miss this step. And then once you've given the biometrics, it's good for 10 years. So when you do extensions, you won't have to do that again. Medical exams could be required just depending on what country you're applying from. Once you submit your application, the medical request will come through that portal. Again, you're given 30 days to do so, and you must go see a panel physician. So this is an IRCC approved doctor for that medical exam. It is not required for all countries, so we just say wait to see if IRCC requests that for you. You may already know, like we know in India, medical is required, so many people will do an upfront medical. So you'll go give that information ahead of time, and then you can upload it within your application. Of course, if you do this upfront, it saves 30 days of processing. The application can go a little faster. So co-op education is work that's part of your studies. It's where you will go to school for credit on your transcript. You may have mandatory or optional co-ops within your program. If you do see on your letter of acceptance, it says, instrumentation engineering with co-op, then you should also be applying for a co-op work permit with your study permit. When it asks for the proof of work as part of your studies, you just upload the second copy of your letter of acceptance. So the same thing, you're going to upload twice. Some programs at Lakehead don't accept you to co-op until after your first year, as you need to meet a specific GPA requirement. So if that happens, please don't fret. You will just come to Canada, get your study permit, and later on, while you're here studying, you will meet with one of our advisors to help you apply for that co-op work permit. So employment in Canada. I know many students like the opportunity to be able to work while they study and stay here after graduation. So eligible students, which means you're registered full-time in a degree program, you were full-time last semester, going to be full-time next semester, you'll be able to work your 24 hours a week while you study. At Lakehead, we have lots of scheduled breaks. This is also reflected on the important dates calendar. The important date calendar is something you should get familiar with, as it will tell you your first and, the start and the end of each semester. So for undergraduate students, you have a nice summer break, but our graduate students are enrolled all year. You do have short breaks between your semesters and also what we call reading week and the upcoming winter holiday. all of these holidays and breaks that are scheduled, you're allowed to work unlimited hours in Canada. So this is a great way to help with some of your expenses because we know it's going to be expensive to be here, and also to gain some Canadian work experience. Also, very happy to announce that all graduates from Lakehead degree programs will be eligible for a 3-year work permit. We don't have any master's programs that are under 8 months, and all of our undergraduate programs are at least 2 years. So you'll qualify for a 3-year open work permit once you finish your studies at Lakehead. Again, it's important to maintain that full-time status every semester and don't take any gaps in your studies and don't work more than that 24 hours a week while you're in classes. So processing times are here. This is just a fresh sample from Jordan from yesterday. So Nigeria right now, the processing time is about 8 weeks. You can check this on the IRCC website. It's country specific. So you can put your country in to say how long should you expect the processing to be. I will note that in Canada, we see it go beyond processing times quite often. So please give yourself as much time as possible to do your application. If you're finding that is coming, the last day to arrive will be January 17th. That's the last day to add classes for the January semester. So if you're not able to get here by that date, then you definitely need to drop those classes and speak to our admissions team about deferring.
I'll jump in here, Jen, and remind students too that if they're currently registered for winter courses and they are not able to arrive on time, ensuring that they drop those courses before any penalties are applied to their account. It's often unfortunate, but students will forget to drop the courses and they aren't here. However, those courses are perhaps accessible online or the materials accessible. And so whenever you determine your time is to drop that course, there may be penalties or fees associated with that. So if you do it before the deadline, you get off scot-free essentially. But it's really important that also you don't have any zeros reflected on your transcript, because if you aren't able to withdraw your course in time, those marks will be reflected and there's nothing that they can do about that. So that's just a warning to winter students. However, for the students that are joining us in the upcoming intakes, spring and fall, we got plenty of time to chat about course registration and what that looks like. So stay tuned. But Jen, I'll pass back to you for one final slide here.
Thanks. Now, some of you may be planning to bring your family members here in Canada with you. So we did talk about including more proof of finance, so showing that you have the funds to support your spouse and children when they come here. But just note that your spouse is eligible for an open work permit while you study, some spouses, and also maybe be able to stay here after graduation. I will just caution people that the regulations around spouses in Canada are going to change. We're going to see some changes come through. However, right now for students, if you're a master's or a PhD student, your spouse is eligible for that open work permit. We are going to see that change to only master students in programs of 16 months or longer. So our 12-month MBA programs would not, or 12-month masters, I should say, would not be eligible for your spouse, but that has not been determined yet what date that will take place. And for undergraduate students, it's only those who are in professional programs. So engineering, nursing, things like that would be eligible for your spouse to work while you study. And then once you graduate and get your open work permit, if you're working in Canada, your spouse may be eligible to extend that open work permit as well. I will let you know that children are eligible to come on study and visitor permits. If you are studying here in Canada, your children typically get to go to school for free. And then same with when you're on a work permit status as well. So you can include your family members originally, and you can all come to Canada together, or you could come here and get settled and then invite them to join you later, which sometimes is a better option. We like to caution people, if you put everyone together, one refusal will cause everyone's refusal. So if your goal is to come here and study, you may want to just focus on yourself right now and then include them and invite them later on.
Alrighty, we have another poll, so I'll launch that. We're curious, now that we've walked through somewhat of the student life cycle, but I mean, we're at the very beginning stages. You haven't necessarily even secured your entry into Canada, but we're curious. What are your extended plans upon graduation? Do you want to work and live in Canada? Would you like to return home, travel abroad, further your studies perhaps? Maybe it's undecided and that's okay too, or it's not applicable. I always like to remind viewers, if I was in your shoes when I first started university, I would have looked at somebody with 10 heads and said, I have no clue. I'm undecided at this point. So you are welcome to put that option as well. Don't feel any different about it. But if you have a plan, and many of you, I'm sure, do already have an idea of what you intend on pursuing beyond graduation, which is exciting, you're more than welcome to participate in today's poll. So we'll give you another 15 seconds to answer that and participate, and then we're going to dive into everyone's favorite part of the webinar, which is the live question and answer period. I know Jintu and Martin and we have been very busy behind the scenes answering questions throughout today's webinar. However, typically that live Q&A brings a lot of questions, so we're excited. Alrighty, I'll wrap the poll up here and I'll share those results. It looks like almost 50%, 43% of you are looking to work and live in Canada. Many of you would like to further your studies. Some are looking to return home or travel abroad, work abroad. And some of you, just like me, are undecided. So thank you again for participating, folks. It's always great to hear your feedback. With that being said, it's everyone's favorite time. It's the live Q&A. So let's hear it. Let's encourage you, though, before I actually open the floor, to submit all questions using the Q&A function. So there's a webinar chat. And in the webinar chat, you'll see that I shared the link to check your processing times. If you're chatting with friends on today's webinar, or if you want to chat directly with us, you're more than welcome to. However, if you have a question for us, please submit any question using the Q&A. It will help us keep it all organized so that we don't lose any questions and we can get back to you if needed. So on that note, let me scan over some of these questions. This first one is from Parmjeet. It says, where can I apply for scholarships, master's programs? So we do not offer entrance scholarships for any of our graduate programs. For our master's programs, for our doctoral programs, we don't offer any entrance scholarships. With that being said, what we do have are a few graduate funding opportunities, very limited number of them though. So I want to be clear about that. The first one would be a graduate assistantship. Essentially, it's an employment contract with yourself and the university, and more specifically, your academic unit, which recognizes your work within that academic unit. So it could be assisting with labs, could be assisting with grading and supporting the professors in their day-to-day work, or a wide range of different activities. That's a graduate assistantship. We also have something called a Faculty Research Award. These are also grant money, typically through your faculty or through your academic unit, and they're limited in terms of supply. So it's really depending on whether or not your supervisor or somebody in your academic unit has external funding for their research. And then they have to choose how to use that funding. So are they going to buy new equipment? Are they going to rent space to conduct their studies? Are they going to hire students perhaps to help facilitate that? Perhaps they're going to hire graduate assistants. There's a wide range of ways to spend that external funding, of course, through the grant funding. And so we cannot guarantee anything, but we would encourage students that are participating in research or thesis-based routes to connect directly with their supervisor or graduate coordinator to learn more about any funding opportunities. And the last option would be additional awards and bursaries. So there are over $11 million in awards and bursaries here at Lakehead University. With that being said, though, they will have varying criteria. So it may be geared towards an undergraduate student in nursing. It could get very specific, or it could be to any Lakehead student that demonstrates financial need and is highly involved in the community. When you actually become a student at Lakehead, you can access the My Awards portal, complete the online profile and questionnaire, and then it will auto match you to eligible scholarships, awards, and bursaries. However, just to reiterate once again, Lakehead does not offer entrance scholarships for graduate students at the master's and doctoral level. Alrighty, what about undergraduate students? Can we apply for any scholarships in the second year? So undergrad students, Lakehead actually has one of the most generous entrance scholarship programs. So if you're entering from high school or transferring from college, university, and you have not already completed your bachelor or diploma, you are eligible to one of Canada's top entrance scholarship programs. We have up to $10,000 available in your very first year, and as little as 6,000, which isn't that little actually. As a second year student, third year student, fourth year student, you will also have access to what I was talking about earlier, the My Awards portal, where there's additional awards and bursaries that have varying criteria that you will be able to apply for. And you can complete your profile and it will actually auto match you to some of the opportunities that are applicable and available to you. Jen, I'm going to pass it over to you. I see you have a couple marked.
Yeah, first, before I jump into the Q&A, I just realized I didn't really talk about this. So I'm just going to share a link in the chat right now for updates for students who are changing DLIs. So on the call today, we may have students who are inside of Canada already. You guys can let me know in the chat if you're here in Canada, raise your hand, whatever. But I have a feeling there's some of you guys who are here who are inside of Canada who will be applying. Okay, great. So if you're inside of Canada and you're a visitor, you're going to do the exact same process we talked about today. You're going to apply like you're outside of Canada in your home country, give all the documents we talked about, use that country guide, but on your application form, you will say that you're in Canada. On this IRCC website, this is what they advise us to do. You must do the application as if you're outside of Canada, but you're inside of Canada. So you will be still screened the exact same way as anybody else. If you're currently in Canada on a study permit or a work permit, you're going to be applying for a new study permit, which is kind of like a study permit extension inside of Canada. For those of you who are here studying at your DLI right now and you're transferring to Lakehead University New School for January, you need to apply for a new study permit or an extension, like I said, within Canada and give a letter of explanation on why are you changing institutions. In the future, all of those students will have to wait till the new permit will be approved. But right now, as you in that link, you'll see there's some exemptions in place. So if you're currently studying at a DLI, you're in status, you have no DLI mentioned on your letter or your study permit, so it says any DLI or it's blank, then you'll be able to start your classes in January while you wait for this new study permit to be approved. IRCC does recognize they made that announcement quite late and there won't be time for everybody to get these permits approved to start classes. So they just announced that yesterday and that was great news for us to know. So please just make sure that you're following the steps in the link that I just shared if you will be applying for your study permit from inside of Canada. I see lots of questions coming into the chat. It's really hard to keep up with them. So if you guys can, please just make sure that you're using that Q&A. All right, so the PAL, oh, sorry, this one I put live. Oh, it's the PAL deposit 5,000. A part of the tuition. So yes, this does get to use towards your tuition expense. Yes. So Akwaba to Mary, I actually just came back from Ghana and had a wonderful trip there. I just checked right now. It says 9 weeks on the IRCC website for you. So please give yourself enough time for visa processing. Many Ghanaians here in Thunder Bay, so you'll definitely feel right at home. And then the last one I just wanted to answer is about the non-refundable deposit. So yes, if you're whatever tuition you pay outside of that non-refundable deposit, if your visa is refused, then you are entitled to a refund. I'll share the refund policy on the chat there. There are dates that are important for you to be mindful of. But yes, if your visa is refused and you paid your full tuition in advance, you are entitled to a refund. Yes.
Jen, I'm going to jump in here. I was just alerted by a viewer that if you're joining from a mobile device, select mobile devices may not actually have the Q&A function available to them. So we will still strongly encourage, we don't want to flood the webinar chat or the chat with questions. However, if the Q&A function is disabled or unavailable on your device, that is not that you can't find it, it's actually that you cannot open it. It should give you an error message. Please submit any questions in the webinar chat. However, to a vast majority of you, I know that your webinar Q&A chat is available. So please, if you don't see it in your Zoom bar of all those buttons, the audio, video, participants, all that sort of stuff, there should be an option under More. If it's not available to you now, click More and it should be there, and it's simply called Q&A. It's very straightforward. Thanks, Jen, for sharing the Lakehead refund info. I'll jump in and also remind viewers, of course, that deposit is being applied to your tuition. So it's essentially just taking a chunk of that payment up front. And then if you are refused, all you have to do is actually provide the refusal letter from IRCC and send it directly to our international accounts officer. His name is Chris. He is a great person to work with and he's very proficient. And the entire accounts team will be happy to assist you in next steps to process any refunds that are applicable. Just make sure you're reviewing the policy and make sure you fully understand all of the requirements and how that money will be applied to your account. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to pose them directly to us, and we'll be happy to guide you to the right answer. This question says, if I receive the offer letter now for fall 2025 and I apply before January for a study permit, will I still require a PAL? I'm gonna put Jen on the spot and
Yeah.
ask her to jump
So
in here.
Luna, I don't know if you're a graduate or undergraduate student. So that's kind of, if you can just let us know in the chat if you're coming for graduate program. Okay. So you have a letter now for fall 2025. You apply for, no, we don't know the answer of this. So IRCC has only told us that the fall or the 2025-2026 intake, we will require PAL letters for graduate students. That's the only information we really have right now. The federal government's working with the provinces to decide what is that number going to look like, and then how they're going to divvy it out by province and territories, and then how they're going to divvy it out by schools. So they're taking their time to kind of do that, like they did with the undergraduate students in the first PAL allotment. We're having PTSD from last year when we went through all this. So we really don't have the answer for now. We know IRCC keeps alluding to the January 22nd, 2025 date, that we might see all these changes kind of come through in the new year. So you could submit your application now and you could still be asked to give a PAL later on. So we just kind of have to go with the flow, Luna, and see what's going on. As of right now, graduate students don't need a PAL letter. So if you submit your application and things change, we will definitely be in touch with you.
I'll jump in here, Jen, and I'll reinforce your message. If you have an active LOA, so that is that you have a letter of acceptance from Lakehead University for an upcoming intake, if you're a graduate student, we would encourage an application as soon as possible. Start the process, get the ball rolling. IRCC is the team, is the body that oversees immigration in Canada, and so if they require a PAL letter in the future, then you can work with us here at Lakehead to request the PAL and do the necessary steps. However, if in the other instance that they don't require a PAL in the future, and you've already submitted that application, you've got the process started significantly earlier than most students do, and hopefully that will give you the confidence and the time necessary to plan your travel and your new journey to Canada. This question is the PAL deposit partially refundable or not? It is fully refundable if you receive a visa refusal. So that is something that Lakehead is committed to. If you can prove to us that IRCC refused your visa, we will refund that. However, if you choose to attend to another institution, if you just choose not to come, but you have not been refused by IRCC, that is non-refundable then. And it does apply directly towards your tuition fees. So essentially that $5,000 deposit is taking that $5,000 out of your first year tuition. Will those applying for masters in September 2025 be entitled to pay the 5,000 PAL? Yes, you will be required to pay for that PAL. And we'll have more information for you as Jennifer shared. The federal government and the provincial governments and territories here in Canada are working out the fine-tuned numbers to ensure that we have enough PALs, hopefully, to welcome as many students to us here at Lakehead and to Canada in general. So we don't quite have our allotted number yet here at Lakehead University. So until we have that number, we cannot share any more details related to our process. However, I can confirm the $5,000 Canadian, 5,000 Canadian dollars will be required to receive a PAL moving forward. This one says, if I receive some kind of assistantship, do I have to pay the PAL deposit? Yes, you will. So even if you receive a scholarship, an award, research funding, you still will be required to pay any deposits here at Lakehead. The deposits are not necessarily They do apply to your tuition, but they actually help secure your spot so that Lakehead confirms that you are committed to joining us, and we will not give your seat to anyone else. So that's why we still require any deposits to be paid, even if you're a funded student.
And lastly, is your permit going to be specific to one university? So yes, Kyra, this is where IRCC is going with these changes. So now your institution will be labeled. So we anticipate those who enter Canada starting now will start to say Lakehead University on their letter of acceptance. The DLI transfer has been very loosey-goosey, as we've seen, but it's been very frustrating for most of the institutions, especially now when we're being given certain specific numbers of students that were allowed every year. We don't want students who are applying to Lakehead to go to other schools and vice versa. So yeah, we are going to see a lot more strict guidelines for students. Really important for students to adhere to their regulations while they're here too. I know that postgraduate work permit is very important to you when you graduate, so please make sure you're studying full-time, actively working, or sorry, actively studying towards your degree, not working extra hours that you're supposed to, and so forth.
Jen, you bring up a good point. Of course, we recognize that the highly valuable postgraduate work permit is something that is really attractive to studying here in Canada, and that's perhaps one of the main factors as to why you're choosing Canada as a study destination. As an institution in Canada, we're actually excited about these changes. We welcome them because the Canadian government has recognized and reinforced their commitment to high quality public university level studies. So as a public university here in Canada, we're extremely excited to see that the government is supporting us in welcoming international students. And also, as Jen mentioned earlier, those students at any one of Lakehead's degree programs will be eligible for consideration of the maximum 3-year postgraduate work permit. So that's good news in terms of students joining us here at Lakehead as a public university in Canada. But I will answer the next question here. It says, does all funds need to be in Canadian? I'm going to answer part of this, and then I'll look to Jen for the second part. If you're paying Lakehead University, you'll have a few options to actually pay in your own currency. However, when we receive it at our end, it will actually be converted into Canadian dollars. So for example, if you're using one of our online payment tools, Convera, it will ask what country you're currently studying. It will ask what school you're joining. So are you joining Lakehead's Thunder Bay campus, Lakehead's Aurelia campus? And then based on that information, it will give you an estimated cost in your home currency. You are eligible to pay in that home currency, in a foreign currency, in a different type of currency. And then when it comes to Canada, it comes to Lakehead, it will be in Canadian dollars. Jen, I'll let you add on how should currencies be displayed in visa applications?
Yeah, so people have shown both. You can show your home country, like when people give bank statements, it's obviously going to be in your home country currency. And IRCC does the conversion. So obviously, if you have banking documents that come from your home, then we always say make sure they're translated. They should be in English. But sometimes I see like this person has $45 million. I know that's not Canadian dollars that they have sitting in their bank account. And IRCC does that check as well. They expect to see funds from other countries. But like Jordan said, when you're paying tuition to Canada, things like that, that you should be looking at that conversion. You should be converting it to make sure you have the same amount of equivalency in Canadian dollars that we require.
Great. Thank you so much. Alrighty, folks, as we sort of look towards the end of today's webinar, we have a few minutes left. So if there's any final questions, now is your time to submit them and we'll do our best to answer them. And if you can't answer them yet, or we can answer them today, we will get back to you by if you simply share us your email, or if you send us an email, even better yet. Our email is welcome@lakeheadu.ca. What I'll do is I'll put that in the chat just so everyone has it. That is the main email here at Lakehead International enrollment, and you can chat with us over there. With that being said, as we wait for a few more questions to come in, I will shift gears in a moment here to remind our viewers final steps before we let you go. Another question came in, is 20K total funds in IRCC needs? So it's just over 20,000. I think it's $20,635 Canadian for living expenses. IRCC will also require year 1 of tuition. Tuition obviously varies based on program and level of study. So you can use our online cost estimator at lakeheadu.ca/tuition. And when you're on there, it will actually spit out the estimated cost for year one. With that being said, of course, these are fees that are currently for our academic school year in 24-25. If you're joining us in 25, as in fall, you will have to assume that there may be a nominal increase. Typically, 1 to 3% could be a little lower, could be a bit higher. And so with that being said, you may want to account for that small increase, but that is the information you will have. We do not release the new semester fees until the end of May typically, or May in general. So keep in mind, if you're joining us in September 2025 and you're looking for that cost estimator, the official cost won't be released quite yet. However, you are more than welcome to use the current fees as a predictor. Alrighty, a few more questions have come in, which is great to see. This says, in spring, there is mentioned to be field school and internships for Masters of Forest Management program. Do we have to pay fees for this term also or not? Typically, you would have to pay fees unless it's a co-op. So a cooperative education experience is the only experience as a part of the program or a part of programs where you do not pay tuition fees, the academic fees. You simply pay a cooperative administrative fee, which is significantly less. From what I understand in the Masters of Forest Management program, this internship, you'll also still be taking courses at the same time during field schools. You'll still be enrolled in courses, and those courses are also being delivered by faculty members and technicians, and so they will probably have fees associated with that. However, you're more than welcome to connect directly with your graduate coordinator and confirm the same. I don't want to say what with 100% confidence that those fees will be applied or what the fees will be. Alrighty, I'll pass it over to Jen. I know that she has one question marked that she would like to answer.
Yeah, I was just going to say the one anonymous question coming in. Is there any verified immigration officer that Lakehead has? Maybe we could work with them to have a smooth entry. So just letting you know that's exactly what you're doing today. So both Jintu and I are regulated Canadian immigration consultants, which means we hold licenses to be able to advise and represent people on immigration matters. So at Lakehead University, we don't submit your application and we're not privy to all the outside of Canada requirements because we both are associated and working here in Canada. So these kind of guides are here. That's what we're putting this presentation on. So we are licensed professionals giving you that assistance. While you're here studying at Lakehead, you have access to all four of your advisors. We have two more advisors who are also licensed in immigration. So all of us will help you with academic questions and your immigration questions together. We help with study permit extensions. We answer questions about what does it look like when you drop classes or change programs, or, what does it look like anything that you're doing in Canada, how does that factor your immigration? We also do workshops while you're here to talk about extending your stay, applying for postgraduate work permits, having your dependents here with you. And we invite guest speakers to come in and talk to you guys about what are your options to stay after graduation. So very good question. You definitely have access to all of us, and that's what we're doing today. We don't assist with applications from outside of Canada, so we can't help you submit your original application, but we can definitely answer any questions that you have. Use that email that I shared in the chat if you need to connect with us.
Thank you so much, Jen. So I'm answering a couple questions here. The first one says, do we have to pay tuition by semester or course by course? So typically it is by semester. In limited circumstances, your tuition would be billed course by course, but a vast majority of our students are billed by semester. So with that being said, keep in mind you will be restricted to your number of enrollment or your course registration, and that will be a process that you work directly with your academic advisor, your chair, or your graduate coordinator with to determine how to fill your course registration up and ensure that you're going to be successful in terms of the workload you have at hand. The next question we have is, do I need a PAL letter for May intake in Masters? You further clarified that you're going to file for your study visa in January. You will require a PAL to join Lakehead University in May intake at a Master's level program. So with that being said, when you apply, may have may play a factor in whether or not that PAL will be required. We do anticipate that RCC could come back and ask for that PAL, even if you've applied before the allotment, as we are calling it, would be announced. So that is the number that Lakehead will be given to then issue PALs on behalf of our institution. So stay tuned for more information. I do want to reiterate and make it crystal clear to our audience. If you are a part of the applicant pool, so if you have an offer to Lakehead University, we have your emails and we will communicate with you very frequently about the PALs, and we'll share the announcements as we learn more, as we determine our processes. So you have full confidence that we will share more information when it is time and when we have that information. But please have patience with us as we continue to wait it out, just like you, to see what's going to happen with the federal government and the provincial governments in terms of dates and allotment numbers, all that sort of stuff. Alrighty, folks, so it is the end of today's session. I will remind you before you let you go, please follow us and take an opportunity to check us out on social media. You can find us at Lakehead International on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. On that note, though, we want to say thank you again for joining us. Thank you to my colleagues, Jennifer and Jintu. As you both know, I could not do today's session without your support and help, so I appreciate it. And to our behind the scenes team, Martin and everyone else, thank you again for your help. With that being said, folks, let's wrap it up here and hopefully we'll see you at the next event. Bye for now. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, I want to encourage you to comment below or connect with us on social media. We can be found at Lakehead International on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Thanks for watching once again, and hopefully we'll see you at the next live webinar. Bye for now.